We've spent the last several episodes talking about teacher planning, how to choose your first unit, how to build repeatable structures, how to stop collecting resources, and actually build something. And today I want to zoom out because all of that only matters if you actually have a life worth coming back to. And I think a lot of secondary teachers, especially those managing multiple preps or building curriculum from scratch, that's harder than it sounds. Not because teachers don't want balance, because the nature of teaching makes it genuinely difficult to leave work at work. And today, I want to talk about why that is and what actually helped me start to change it. Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Khristen Massic, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher. Tell you about something I don't talk about often. For years, I struggled with infertility, and when we finally had our kids, after everything it took to get there, I had this vision of what motherhood was going to look like. Being present, being patient, being the kind of mom who was fully there at bedtime. And then reality set in because I was still a teacher with multiple preps and grading that never ended and lessons that somehow always got pushed to the back of the line because missing grades in the grade book are visible in a way that an unprepared teacher isn't. Not until the next morning when 30 students walk in and look at you expecting something to happen. So the grading happened during the school day and the lesson planning happened at night. And bedtime, that part of the day that I had imagined being fully present for, became the thing that stood between me and getting back to work. I'm not proud of this, but I remember getting agitated when my kids needed more from me at bedtime, when they wanted another book, another question, another few minutes, because in the back of my mind, I was thinking about lesson plans. And I'd sit there and these kids I had waited and hoped and worked so hard for, and part of me was somewhere else entirely. That's the cost of unsustainable planning systems that nobody puts in the professional development material. It doesn't just affect your classroom, it follows you home. It sits with you at bedtime. It makes you someone you don't want to be in the moments that matter most. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of teachers know exactly what it feels like to be physically present with the people they love and mentally still at school. Teacher work-life balance isn't just a professional goal, it's a personal one. And the thing that gets in the way of it most isn't a lack of boundaries or productivity tips. It's planning systems that require you to carry everything in your head all the time. That's the real problem. And that's what sustainable systems actually solve. Here's what I want you to understand about the teacher workload cycle, especially for multiple prep teachers. Teaching is one of the only jobs where you genuinely cannot wing it. 30 students walk in every period expecting something to happen. You can't ease into your morning. You can't figure it out as you go. You have to be ready. And that reality creates a mental load that never fully shuts off. There's always another lesson, another assessment, another class to prep, another thing you meant to grade. And when your planning systems are inconsistent, when every lesson requires starting from scratch, when every course feels disconnected, when there's no repeatable structure holding things up, your brain never gets to rest because there's always something unfinished, always something that could be better, always something waiting for you when the kids finally go to sleep. Most advice about work-life balance focuses on boundaries and teacher time management, and those things matter, but they're really hard to implement when your planning system is what's creating the problem. You can set all the boundaries you want, but if lesson planning still requires 2 hours of original thought every night, the boundary doesn't hold. The system has to change first. Here's what finally started shifting things for me, and it wasn't productivity hack or a better planner. It was repeatable structures. Once I started building lessons that followed a consistent shape, once I had frameworks I could return to instead of reinventing everything from scratch, planning stopped being something that required my full creative energy every single night because I wasn't starting from zero anymore. I had something to build from, and that changes everything, not just professionally, at home. Because when planning gets lighter, when the mental load has somewhere to go instead of just floating around in your head, you get a little more of yourself back. Not all of it. Teaching is always going to ask a lot of you, but a little more. And sometimes a little more is the difference between being present at bedtime and being somewhere else entirely. I want to bring this back to summer specifically, because that's where the pressure tends to peak. Teachers feel it the moment school lets out, the relief of being done, and then almost immediately, the guilt of not planning. And what happens for a lot of multiple prep teachers is that summer becomes one of two things. Either you do nothing and spend August in full panic mode, or you spend your entire break doing unpaid curriculum work and arrive in September exhausted before the school year even starts. Neither of those is sustainable. Here's the distinction that actually matters. There's a difference between strategically building a foundation and turning your entire summer into unpaid curriculum writing labor. A foundation means one strong starting unit, one repeatable lesson framework, one organizational system you can actually maintain. That's enough to walk into September knowing what you're teaching and knowing you have the structure that makes planning easier throughout the year, not just in August. You do not need to earn your rest by finishing everything first. You need systems that make the rest of the year more manageable. That's different. And honestly, for teachers who waited years to have children, or who have people at home who need them, or who simply deserve to spend a summer afternoon somewhere other than their desk, that distinction matters more than any productivity tip ever could. I want to paint a picture of what is actually possible here. Imagine starting the school year not scrambling, not staring at a pile of standards and saved ideas and half-formed plans the night before your first day, but walking in knowing what you're teaching and knowing that when you sit down to plan the next unit, you have a repeatable structure to build from instead of a blank page. That's not a fantasy. That's what happens when you do the right kind of planning work before August. The strategic kind, not the exhaustive kind. You go from carrying everything mentally all the time to having a system that holds it for you. And that changes what bedtime looks like. That changes what Saturday morning looks like. That changes what summer looks like. Not because teaching gets easier, but because your systems finally start working for you instead of against you. That transformation, going from staring at standards and scattered ideas to having your first unit mapped with a repeatable introduce, practice, produce structure, is exactly what Unit Planning Lab is designed to create. It's built specifically for secondary teachers, managing multiple preps, building courses without a provided curriculum, and trying to figure out how to plan sustainably without giving up their entire summer to do it. Inside the lab, we don't just talk about building a unit, we build one together. With a repeatable structure, you can adapt across every course you teach. So you stop starting from scratch every time you sit down to plan. If you've been following the series and thinking, I need help actually doing this is where it happens. The link is in the show notes. You became a teacher because you wanted to make a difference, not because you wanted to spend every evening at your desk and every summer rebuilding lessons you'll partially abandon by October. The planning systems most secondary teachers are using right now weren't designed for this reality. They weren't built for multiple preps. They weren't built for elective teachers and CTE teachers constructing courses from scratch. They weren't built for the kind of teacher workload that follows you home and sits with you at bedtime. But that doesn't mean sustainable is impossible. It means you need different systems built for your reality. And once you have them, once your lessons have a repeatable shape and your planning has a structure that travels across courses, you get a little more of yourself back, not just as a teacher, as a person. You deserve a teaching life that leaves room for your actual life too. If you're ready to build those systems, grab the free secondary teacher planning calendar in the show notes as your starting point. And when you're ready to go deeper, the Unit Planning Lab is where we will do this work together. Both links are in the show notes. Finish something that makes tomorrow lighter. I'll see you next time.